What's up everybody, SuperDurks fan here for another car review. This is of course the 1997 Mazda MX-5 Miata. Huge thanks to Ryan for allowing me to review his very stock and very clean looking Miata here for you guys today. So, about the 97, well, this is the last year of the NAs, and I've never driven an NA Miata. I've reviewed the ND and the NC, but never the NA, and so I'm really excited to see what all the hype is about, because, you know, the answer is always Miata, and usually people are referring to the NA, especially whenever they say that, so I want to see for myself here, you know, what is so awesome about the NA. And, but yeah, I mean, I really like the look of these. I mean, this one, like I said, is totally stock, which is so rare and so awesome to find in this state, and low miles, so this one is really nice, no rust or anything. I love the design that they did. You know, they stuck even all the way up to 97. They stuck with the flip-up headlights, which looked great. I think, you know, especially these days, it adds a lot of charm to the car as well. And you know, it's just simple, clean lines, and you know, just like the Miata, there's nothing excessive or unnecessary about it. It's just lean and purposeful, and I really love that about the design. Right, so the interior of the 1997 Mazda Miata, well, it's very cool. So anyway, first things first, sitting down in these seats, they're, you know, nice normal cloth seats here. The bolstering leaves a lot to be desired, but of course, most cars from this time period share that same characteristic. But they do have, you know, some decent bolstering here. They hold you in pretty well, and better than some other sporty cars of the time. And they do seem very comfortable, and so overall, pretty good seats. Next is the steering wheel in the Miata here, which is just a plain, nice, simple wheel here. It's got a good 9.3 grip for the most part. It's pretty comfortable. No 10 and 2 notches or anything, but nicely leather wrapped, and you know, just a good basic wheel. I wish it was a little bit sportier though, maybe you know, without this large airbag here. But that was a new addition here with some of these later model years of the NAs. You now had dual airbags, which is great for safety. But yeah, I mean, otherwise though, like I said, it's a nice, simple wheel, and gets the job done. Next is the gauges in the Miata, which are, you know, really good looking, just the basics. That's all you need. Very nice, clear, large tachometer there, which is always great to have. And as you can see here, this one has only 63,000 original miles, so very low mileage, mint example here we're dealing with. Coming over to the center of the dashboard here, you know, just nice, and again, basically you got these tiny little air vents that almost look like they're like toys or something. They're that small, smallest air vents I've ever seen. And then you have your very basic, you know, climate controls here. Again, we're talking about a Miata, so nothing fancy. And then you have, this one has an aftermarket stereo, of course, and you could put whatever you want in here. It's a standard double din opening here, so nice to have that flexibility. Yeah, otherwise though, I mean, this interior though, it's kind of amazing at how roomy it feels for such a small little car. You don't feel cramped or claustrophobic at all, even with the roof off here. But even with the roof up, you still have enough room that, you know, taller people can fit in these very well, and pretty good use of space. Speaking of space, as far as storage space goes in the Miata, it's actually pretty good. So you have an actual pocket here in the door, which is something you don't see too often. And then coming over to the center here, like I said, this has a single din head unit here. You do have a little spot under here that you otherwise wouldn't have. And then you have an ashtray back here. There are no cup holders in this car, but it's like they tried to put cup holders in or something, because you can lift this up and there is an empty space there, but they just decided to use it instead for the ashtray. Nice to have that there. And then you have your window switches, and then you have this center armrest, which is somewhat flexible plastic, but it's still very hard to the touch, so yeah, not the most comfortable armrest. But anyway, you open that up and you have a shallow but actually a pretty long little storage space there, which is pretty impressive, you know, for again a small car like this. And that's where your trunk and also your fuel door latches are also hidden. And unlike the brand new ND Miata, this one actually does have a glove box, so that's an improvement there over the new one even. So yeah, I mean, for a tiny little sports car like this, I think it actually is a pretty good amount of space. Trunk space in the the Miata is also pretty good here, you know, for, again, a car of this size. Now this one has the spare tire in there as well, but you know, it's enough that you can fit a small suitcase in there, you know, certainly a couple of duffel bags, and you know, again, more than I was even expecting for an NA, honestly. It is pretty usable. Alright, so start up and go for a drive. Of course, 9070 still does have a basic key here, so you just slip it into the slot. That starts right up. Alright, so setting off in the 97 Miata here. So, first thing you notice, well, you definitely sit low in this car, of course, as you would expect. Other things that you notice right off the bat, the clutch is actually a nice short throw, like many cars here from the 90s, and so it's really easy to use, honestly. It's pretty light and predictable, so that's a nice thing. Otherwise, though, you know, top down is always great here, and I love convertibles, so I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this one as well. It does feel very small. I mean, your side mirror is like right next to your wrist here. Everything is all very close to you. It definitely does feel small going down the road. You know, very easy to keep in your lane and whatnot. But it's actually pretty smooth here on the stock suspension as well. You know, I mean, we're on a bumpy park road here, and it's not overly, you know, bumpy. It doesn't feel overly sporty. It's just, you know, pretty nice and average feeling on, you know, a bumpy road, which is nice. It's not too harsh or anything. Another thing you notice, even before I'm really even getting on it, is the throttle response is extremely sharp, and, you know, analog, of course, old school feeling here, since it is an old school, you know, throttle cable, but it's really eager to just want to accelerate immediately, and so it adds to the playful attitude. Visibility in the Miata is, of course, no brainer here, but excellent visibility forward. You know, there's no hood to look over really, and view out of the back, of course, and out of the sides is amazing with the top down, and even with the top up, though, you still have a little window back there, and it's such a small car that you know, you don't really have a whole lot to worry about as far as visibility goes. Alrighty, so let's turn onto this back road here and see about the Miata. Here we go. All the way up to 7,000 RPMs here, and it's you know, it's not super fast. We're dealing with a car that has a 1.8 liter 4-cylinder engine, has 133 horsepower, and 115 pound-feet of torque, and that was an upgrade, mind you. So, because these originally started out with a 1.6 liter engine and only had like 115 horsepower, so this is a little bit faster. 0 to 60 time for these was in the 8-second range, which you know, it doesn't take a lot of power to get something like this up to speed whenever you're dealing with a car that only weighs roughly 2,200 pounds. And we're on some nice windy roads here, and this is where the Miata absolutely shines. It is so communicative and so sharp. It really does feel like a go-kart, honestly. The steering is just so eager to do whatever you want, and like I said, the throttle response is super sharp, and everything is just very fun. You can tell it just wants to be just dove into another corner here, and so it's fun to drive, honestly. And you know, the lack of power once you get up and going isn't very much a problem, because you know, whenever you're starting off, of course, you're kind of waiting for it to get up to speed. But once you're up to speed, you can you don't have to slow down as much for corners, so you can kind of just carry the speed through the corners here. And even on the stock suspension, it still handles it very, very well. And that is one nice thing, is you do get a little bit of a lean here with this. And you know, if you put some kind of stiffer springs or coilovers, you know, I feel like it would be a little less predictable, and this makes it very predictable. You can easily feel the car's limits, and you can tell that it's you know, set up to be a little softer, a little more comfortable, while still being very sporty. And so I think it's a great, you know, grand touring type vehicle as well. But I just love how it goes around corners. Now, I mean, yes, you can tell that the tires are very skinny, and you can tell that the wheels are small, and you know, it's definitely, there's a lot of room for improvement if, you know, you want to improve one of these. But there's a lot to be said for the stock characteristics and how it feels. It just feels like it's like you're piloting a feather. I mean, it's just so lightweight and feels great. Another acceleration. It's not bad, honestly. honestly. I mean, again, like I said, it's not crazy power, it's not a muscle car, but if you want this thing to go fast in a straight line, then you bought the wrong car, I'm sorry. But it is very fun, and another thing I gotta say is this gearbox feels really great. It's super short shifts, nice and notchy, and honestly, it's better than a lot of modern gearboxes, and it feels really great, really direct, and it's a joy to use. One thing about the Miatas though that's different from stuff like Honda's VTEC and stuff like that is there is no VTEC sensation. There isn't any kind of surging as you get up closer to the red line. It's very predictable. It's just the same amount of thrust really all the way through the power band there, and it just keeps going and going, and then you shift, and there's really no change in character or any kind of unpredictability to it. It's very predictable, and that's one thing that all the Miatas have had. The ND, the NC that I reviewed, both of those also, the engine was very just plain, just it gave you the same power all the way through the power band, very predictable, and it's just, yeah, it's a different thing. I mean, some people prefer, the crazier power delivery, but this is great for when you're in a corner, you don't have any surprises. Now that we're up at some higher speeds here with road imperfections and whatnot, you do feel just about every bump in the road here. It's not, rude in the way that it presents the bumps and stuff, but it's definitely sporty, and it's 90s sports car type stuff. So you feel very connected to the driving experience. It's very natural and organic feeling, and you feel very connected, and it just makes you feel a little bit more alive. A few other things about the Miata here while I've been driving a little longer. The one thing that kind of stands out to me is just the sense of speed that you get with these, and you feel like you're going so much faster in these than you do in other normal cars and even other convertibles. And so I think that's part of the Miata magic is its sense of speed, and the fact that even going around corners, the way the springs are set up here from the factory, you feel like you're going faster into a corner than you actually are. And whenever you're going down the road, of course, with the smaller size, you feel like you're going faster than you are. Another thing to note about the Miata is, of course, like all Japanese cars from the 90s, they're extremely well built, very solid, everything is well put together. There's not any squeaks or rattles here in this car, even being, basically 18 years old now at this point. And so that's really impressive. It's just very solid and well built. Of course, this one is low miles, but even higher mileage ones, that's why the Miata is so popular, because they're so reliable and they're just great little cars. At the end of the day, if you want something that's fast in a straight line and crazy and will set your hair on fire, this is not the car for that. But it is so fun, and it's fun in a simple and honest way. There's no, kind of crazy trickery going on. There aren't any advanced technological systems. There isn't even, any kind of power to complicate things. It's just a very simple driving experience, and it really is a driver's car. I mean, everything that you use, the transmission, the clutch, all the pedals, everything is so satisfying to use, and it makes for a very fun car. And even the owner of this car also has an Acura RSX, which is another good car. He's like, between this and that, he would pick this every day as long as the weather is decent and stuff, because it's just the more fun car. And yeah, sure, there's faster stuff out there, there's crazier stuff out there, but this is really getting back to basics, and I think that's what makes the Miatas so great, and especially here for the NA. I think that it's even a little simpler. I've since driving the NC and the ND, those are fun as well, and I think the ND really got back to the magic of the NAs here. But the NC is definitely not as pure and wasn't as much fun as this is to me, for sure. Fun. I mean, nothing crazy, but you can redline it all day, and you don't have to go over the speed limit in order to redline it, which is, refreshing, especially in these very high horsepower days we live in. One other thing I haven't mentioned yet is the brake pedal, which again, cars with age, usually seem to have a little more travel to the brake pedal, and this one has a good amount of travel before you get into the meat of the brake pads there. But once you do step on them, I mean, they're small little rotors, and it's not the most crazy braking package, but that's something that's very easy to upgrade again if you do want, super mighty brakes in a Miata. But I mean, they fit the personality of the car. Everything is very evenly matched. It's not overpowered. It's it doesn't have wimpy brakes. The brakes are good enough for a car that weighs 2,200 pounds, and totally sufficient, I think. But yeah, overall, it's hard to fault the Miata. I mean, it's a spectacular little car. I mean, sure, it doesn't have a ton of creature comforts, and it doesn't have, any technology to speak of as far as, advanced things. But I think that's the glory of it. That's the awesome thing about these, and it's really fun. It's refreshing to drive something like this after all the computerized crazy stuff we have these days. This is just classic fun, and that's why it's super popular to this day. And I think, you know, the answer is Miata. I think it's definitely a car you can't go wrong with. It's a fun little car, and it's great that these are so affordable now that anyone can pick one up. And it's a really good first car too to, you know, learn how to drive manual on, because it's very easy and predictable. It's pretty safe as far as the power delivery, although of course it is a smaller car, so as far as safety and stuff goes, you certainly want to make sure you don't run into anything, especially in one of these. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just a great little car. And so huge thanks once again to Ryan for allowing me to review his extremely stock Miata. It's so hard to find a stock Miata, and I waited a long time to find the right NA, and I'm really glad that I waited here to see what they were like from the factory, and, you know, the way that Mazda intended it, because I think it really is great, you know, whenever you don't have crazy suspension on them and stuff. It handles fun, and it's still really enjoyable to drive, even in the stock configuration. I think it definitely gives it a different feel than when you do modifications and stuff, and it definitely just, it makes it more playful and lower limits, which I think actually make it more fun, honestly. So anyway, thank you guys very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.